Wife is, her maiden name was Bulaw, B-U-L-A-W. Of course, her first name is Linda, middle name is Jane. Linda Jane attended airline hostess school, United Airlines, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and her first assignment apparently was Seattle, Washington. Gerald, the deceased husband, graduated from Stanford University from all indications. They were married in Barrington Hills.
Can you say whether you have what you consider to be any good leads or clues in this case at this point?
I can't say at this point.
Where were the victims found?
Mr. and Mrs. were found in their bedroom, what apparently is their bedroom, on the floor.
Was he laying across her?
No,
Where was the child
When
found?
will we get
in her
those?
bedroom.
Next 15.
Has criminal assault upon her been confirmed at this time?
No, it has not been. I don't know where that information came from.
Is there anything that would suggest it in your investigation?
I can't say.
This 57-year-old Bricca cold case has received national attention for decades. Books have been written, documentaries produced, details and theories debated on podcast, Facebook, and YouTube. What about this particular cold case has kept us mesmerized year after year? The Bricca home at 3381 Greenway Avenue seems eerily untouched by time. So many haunting memories remain trapped within those walls. From whispered gossip to rampant rumors, the one question that has gone unanswered for decades is, who entered this home on September 25, 1966, and savagely stabbed Linda and Gerald Bricca and their 4-year-old daughter Debbie to death? Almost every cold case can be like putting a puzzle together. The facts, for the most part, fit together easily. Rumors and accusations are the pieces that never quite fit. The more you force the pieces together, the more the puzzle becomes distorted. In this video, we have tried to separate the facts from the fiction that have muddied this case for years. So Eye on Justice will focus in on 23 important pieces of information, which we will lay out for you one by one. Then we will bring in some of the notable wild cards and rumors that remain a part of this 57-year-old investigation. Number 1, the Briccas were new in town and well-liked. In 1966, the homes here in Bridgetown were only about 10 years old. The Briccas had moved from Seattle, Washington to this fashionable suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio, just 3 years before they were murdered. The couple were well-liked and known in the neighborhood as the Kids because they were the youngest in this cozy little community. Neighbors frequently got together for backyard barbecues, parties, and summertime fun. Bridgetown was known to be a safe place. No conflicts, no violence, until that rainy Sunday in September that ended in the slaughter of the Bricca family. Number 2, Linda Bricca was a beautiful woman with a complicated home life. This is 23-year-old Linda Bricca. Friends described her as a beautiful woman who was sometimes aloof and loved animals so much that she sometimes preferred pets over people. She and her husband had only been married for 5 years and had 1 child. Linda was a former flight attendant and had just recently returned to work part-time at a local veterinary office. It was reported that Linda's husband, Gerry, was a workaholic. This led to marital problems, which drove Linda to have an affair that started soon after the couple moved to the Cincinnati area. The person Linda was seeing was none other than the vet that she had recently gone to work for, a fact that the married doctor would always deny. Number 3, Gerald Bricca was a career-focused, happy guy with no known enemies. This is 26-year-old Gerald Bricca. Gerry, as he was commonly called, worked long and odd hours as a chemical engineer for the Monsanto Company. The biotechnology and chemical plant in Addiston was located close to the Bricca home. Gerry was so dedicated to his work that he usually worked weekends and holidays. Neighbors described him as hard-working, friendly, and a happy guy who liked to tell a joke or two. And most of all, he loved children. Number 4, Debbie Bricca, perhaps the most heartbreaking and unfortunate casualty. This is 4-year-old Debbie Bricca. She was as beautiful as her mother, intelligent and well-disciplined. Neighbors said that little Debbie liked to be called Carol, and that she often talked like an adult. Number 5, If Only Dogs Could Talk. The Briccas had 2 dogs, Dusty, a poodle mix, and Thumper, a cocker spaniel mix. Both dogs were aggressive and known to bark wildly at neighbors and strangers. One neighbor had told a reporter that the dogs had the run of the house and were often found on beds, furniture, and laps. This made it even more strange when it was learned that the dogs were found unharmed, locked in a room on the lower level of the home when the murder scene was discovered. Number 6, A Mundane Timeline. On Sunday, September 25th, Gerry Bricca was the only victim seen that day. The timeline goes like this. 7:30 a.m., Gerry arrives at work, not uncommon for him to work on Sundays. 9 a.m., Gerry attends morning mass. 10 a.m., Gerry arrives back home. 12:25 p.m., Gerry goes back to work. 4:25 p.m., Gerry clocks out and runs some errands. 6:45 p.m., Gerry arrives home. 8:45 p.m., Gerry goes to a local market to pick up milk. Sometime between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m., Gerry was last seen taking the family's trash to the curb. Neighbor Joan Jansen, who lived across the street, was walking her dog while the rain let up. She stopped to have a brief conversation with Gerry. Gerry then went back inside his home, and he was never seen alive again. Number 7, No one heard a thing. Neighbors didn't hear the Briccas dogs barking Sunday night, nor all day Monday. They also stated that the Bricca home was oddly silent. No sounds of screams or cries for help. The homes in the neighborhood were only 15 feet apart, which is close enough to alert anyone to signs of trouble. Number 8, Mr. Meyer notices something strange. The first person to notice that something was amiss at the Bricca home was neighbor Richard Meyer. On Monday the 26th, Mr. Meyer remembered seeing the Bricca's back floodlights and other lights inside the home on at 6 a.m. when he got up to go to work. Number 9, the Bricca's neighbors discover the murder scene. On Tuesday the 27th, Mrs. Meyer heard the Bricca dogs begin to bark incessantly. She and her husband noticed that Linda and Gerry had not taken in their trash containers. Newspapers were beginning to pile up, and their cars had not been moved in days. They tried phoning the home but got no answer. A phone call was placed to the company where Gerry worked, and the Meyers were told that Gerry had not been into work for 2 days. At 10:45 p.m. on the 27th, Mr. Meyer asked another neighbor, Richard Jansen, to go with him to the Bricca home to investigate. "We went over," Meyer said. "I rang the doorbell, and then I heard the dogs bark. The doorknob was loose, but the door was tightly closed. We opened the door at arm's length and got a whiff. Meyer was a war veteran and immediately recognized the smell of decomposing bodies.
Meet the Swinger, the incredible new...
They could hear a television playing loudly. Meyer scanned the inside of the house with his flashlight. Jansen called out for Linda at least 3 times and got no answer. They could see the Briccas' bedroom from the front door, and they thought they saw a leg. Meyer and Jansen did not step inside. They shut the front door and notified the sheriff's office. Number 10. Meyer and Jansen identify the bodies. Authorities found 3 dead inside the home. All 3 victims had sustained multiple stab wounds. Jansen and Meyer were asked to step inside and identify the bodies. Jansen said that Linda was lying on top of Gerry on the floor. He saw Gerry's ID card lying on the floor near Linda's head. Mr. Jansen stated that there was blood everywhere, especially around their heads. The TV was so loud that you could hear it playing on the 3rd level of the home. He went on to say that it looked like the house had been ransacked. Almost every drawer had been pulled open. Jansen and Meyer went to Debbie's room. Visibly shaken by what he had seen, Mr. Meyer later told a reporter, "My God, what they did to that baby." Number 11. A disturbing scene. Gerry and Linda were located on the floor of their bedroom between the bed and the wall. Gerry was fully clothed except for his shoes. His body was lying face down. Linda was stabbed to death on the bed and then laid across Gerry face up. Linda was wearing an unzipped house coat over a nightgown that was torn at the breast. Both victims had been stabbed several times in their head, neck, and upper torso. The bed was unmade and spotted with caked blood. Debbie was found in her bedroom that was next to her parents' room. She was wearing a flannel nightgown and 1 red sock on her left foot. Her body was lying face down and spread eagle on the bedroom floor. A stuffed animal was about 2 feet from her outstretched right hand. Debbie had been stabbed several times in the back. The covers on her bed were intact, and the other red sock was found lying there. Authorities believe that Debbie may have been hiding under her bed and was dragged out to where she was fatally stabbed. Number 12. It is believed that the killer was someone they knew. Investigators decided that the killer was known to the family because both the front and rear doors of the home were closed but unlocked. There was no signs of forced entry and no signs that a struggle had taken place. Chief investigator for the county police, Lieutenant Herbert Vogel, had a theory of his own. He believed that the killer was let in at the back basement door into the family room. Damp laundry was found in the adjacent utility room, and it looked as if Linda had been recently folding clothes on the family room sofa. She may have opened the door to someone she recognized. Number 13. An important set of phone calls. Authorities knew that the Briccas were still alive at 10 p.m. Sunday the 25th because Mrs. Bricca's father called to say that he and her mother were leaving on vacation. He said that he and Linda had a brief conversation and that there was nothing in her voice to suggest that her life may have been in danger. Gerry's supervisor phoned him at 6:30 a.m. Monday the 26th when he failed to meet him at the airport for a 7:05 flight to West Virginia for business. Mr. Ritchie stated that no one answered his call, so authorities surmised that the killings took place between 10 p.m. Sunday and 6:30 a.m. Monday. Number 14. Purposely staged. Investigators felt that the murder scene looked staged. A few drawers were open, but nothing appeared to be missing, except for a teak wood carving knife with a 6.5-inch blade. The knife was part of a set, and the matching fork was left behind. Linda kept the set on top of a china cupboard in the dining room, out of Debbie's reach. Gerry's empty wallet and Linda's torn nightgown may also have been staged. Number 15. The killer took the bindings with him. Lieutenant Vogel stated that wrist markings indicated that Gerry and Linda's hands were bound behind them. Gerry was bound with adhesive tape and Linda with rope. The murderer removed the bindings after the victims were dead and took them with him. Gerry had 2 men's socks stuffed in his mouth, and a piece of adhesive tape still clung to his face when he was found. The tape found on Gerry was tested and was found to be medical tape. Number 16. The coroner's findings. The following details were reported by coroner Dr. Frank P. Cleveland. Linda and Gerry each had a penetrative type of head wound that was not consistent with a knife puncture. Gerry was 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed 170 pounds. He was stabbed 4 times in the back, 3 times in the neck, and twice in the head. His face showed signs that he had been beaten. There were no apparent signs of defensive wounds. Linda Bricca was 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighed 135 pounds. She was stabbed 6 times in the chest and side, twice on the head and once in the center of the neck and once on the left side of the neck. Dr. Cleveland stated that there was evidence that Linda recently had sexual relations before she was murdered. Cleveland claimed that she was raped, but authorities said that there was no way to positively determine if she had been raped or had consensual intercourse. There were no signs on her body that she had struggled with her assailant. Debbie Bricca was 3 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 30 pounds. She was stabbed 4 times in the back. Each stab was applied with so much force that the blade went all the way through her body. The blade used in the stabbings was estimated to be 5.5 to 7 inches long, possibly a carving knife. The direction of the stab wounds indicates that the killer was left-handed. Stubbing contents places the time of death on Sunday, September 25th, after 9 p.m. Number 17. Police think the killer may have lingered. Authorities had reason to believe that the killer or killers were in no hurry to leave the crime scene. Police found Monday's morning paper missing, which would have been delivered at around 2 a.m., so it's quite possible that the killer used the paper to wrap up the murder weapon. The weapon was most likely placed in the Briccas trash before it was picked up by mid-morning on Monday and taken to the landfill. Number 18. The evidence. Evidence collected at the scene included the following: partial fingerprints and palm prints. The prints were sent to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C., but the agency was never able to match the prints to any known person. Marlboro cigarette butts, a rug, victim's clothing, bloody towels, bed sheets, seminal fluid, and human hair found clutched in Linda's hand. Number 19. The residents of Bridgetown take center stage. Investigators worked around the clock and conducted over 400 interviews. Every resource was utilized to create a profile of the killer, and this is where the pieces of this puzzling case became harder to fit into place. From the front window of the roped-off Bricca home, law enforcement watched as curious onlookers gathered on the sidewalks. Mothers took extra care to keep their children close, and men whispered nervously to each other. Perhaps that is where the answer to these grisly murders lie. Investigators would see what the neighbors of Bridgetown had to say about the Briccas. Number 20. The mysterious man. Richard Meyer, who discovered the bodies along with Richard Jansen, said that his wife was in the garage the Thursday before the murders and noticed a man walking back and forth on Greenway Avenue, but said she couldn't identify his face. Number 21. Linda's odd behavior. Linda's friend, Nettie Caudell, who lived down the street, said that Linda's behavior had changed shortly before the murders. She became more protective of Debbie. Linda mentioned to Nettie that she had helped break up a drug ring when she was a flight attendant. News of a murder and brutal beating of 2 flight attendants for the same airline in June of 1966 may have spooked her. Number 22. Investigators hone in on Uncle Freddie. Investigators learned that Fred Kleininger, the vet that recently employed Linda, became acquainted with her shortly after the family moved to Bridgetown. The two had been seen together several times on a lonely road near town. Debbie often referred to him as Uncle Freddie. Given that the tape on Gerry's face was medical tape, and the fact that authorities believed that the Briccas dogs may have been sedated the night of the murders led them to take a closer look at Fred. Although the dogs were never tested for drugs in their system, it would answer the question of why the dogs were silent until the Tuesday after the murders. But Fred Kleininger's connection to the murders goes much, much deeper. On Linda's second day of work at Kleininger's office, there was an emergency concerning some kittens that Fred couldn't save. This led to Fred and Linda having a drink together after work to calm their nerves. Linda then returned home drunk and told Gerry where she had been. This made Gerry very upset and resulted in an argument where he threatened to beat Fred up. Neighbors reported hearing that argument. On the Thursday before the murders, Linda made an emergency call to Fred's service and left a message to call her back. The next day, Linda is seen with Fred at an archery range. Fred's friends said that he seemed uncomfortable to be there with Linda. Then at 10:30 p.m. on the night of the murders, Fred is seen rushing into a Beverage Depot about a quarter of a mile from the Bricca home. Fred is acting very distraught and is wearing a sport coat that doesn't match his pants. Fred asked the proprietor if he could use the phone because he has a medical emergency. The proprietor knows Fred very well, as Fred has been coming in there for years. He also noticed that Fred kept his left hand in his pocket and his other hand was shaking while using the phone. Fred then tells the proprietor that he couldn't reach the person he was calling and goes running out into the rainy night. Fred would never go back into that Beverage Depot again. Number 23. The questioning of Fred Kleininger. Kleininger was questioned for 10 minutes right after the murders and then again in his office on October 8th for 45 minutes. The interview was recorded. The next day, Kleininger retained an attorney. Lieutenant Vogel tried to work with Leininger's attorney, Richard Moore, to set up another interview. Moore agreed but had a list of several conditions. One such demand was that Vogel hand over the recording from the first interview, which Vogel refused. Even though Vogel agreed to most of Moore's conditions, he would not allow his client to be interviewed. Lieutenant Vogel said, "The questions that we want to ask Fred Kleininger are the same questions that we have asked hundreds of people." Fred Leininger's legal representation practically made him a dead end in this case. But what if Kleininger had nothing to do with the Bricca murders? What if the rigorous pursuit by authorities to find Fred Kleininger guilty meant that they failed to dig deeper into other possibilities? This brings us to the endless theories and unanswered questions, the elusive pieces of this puzzling case that have remained just out of reach of investigators' hands. One such theory was that the murders were somehow linked to a drug ring that Linda helped break up during her brief employment with the airline. There was never any evidence found in this case to lead authorities to believe that the killings were drug-related. A couple of other theories involved Gerry. Was it possible that Gerry discovered something at the biotechnology company that he worked for that may have put his family in danger? Or perhaps it may have been a revenge killing by a co-worker. Did Gerry make a few enemies as he climbed the ladder of success? In 1966, rumors drifted back and forth about local vets performing secret abortions and supplying drugs to colts so that they could sedate animals before they were sacrificed. The question remains, did Linda stumble across some evidence that someone was willing to kill to keep secret? A pregnancy test performed during Linda Briccas' autopsy came back negative. Yet 3 weeks before the murders, Linda told friends that she thought she might be pregnant. The Thursday before the murders, Linda left an emergency message on Fred Kleininger's answering service. The next day, Linda is seen with a nervous Fred at an archery range. Did Linda tell Fred that day that she may be pregnant with his child? Fred already had 5 children of his own. He was well known around town and was a respected businessman. Did Fred see Linda as a threat that could ruin everything that he had built for himself? Fred was last seen with Linda the day before the murders by 2 separate witnesses. Fred Kleininger had 3 close friends, Dr. Herman Rader, Dr. Stanley Keller, and Glenn Ryle, a local host of a children's television show. Rader and Keller both had spent time in a psychiatric hospital. Ryle, formerly in Special Forces, was trained to kill. Is it possible that Fred's friends were somehow involved in the Bricca murders? Oddly enough, witnesses saw 3 people getting into a parked car in front of the Bricca home between 11:20 and 11:30 p.m. on Sunday, September 25th. One of them may have been a woman. One of the most mysterious questions in this case is why didn't the Briccas fight back against their assailant? Gerry was a big man and physically fit, yet there were no signs he fought with a killer to protect his family. Then again, maybe we are overthinking all of this. Perhaps police did have it right. This could have been a crime of passion carried out by a jealous lover. Regardless of whether it was consensual or rape, the semen found on Linda did not match Gerry Bricca. She was stabbed to death on her bed and then placed on top of Gerry, almost as if the assailant was deliberately posing her in a way that symbolized her infidelity, which of course points us back to Fred Kleininger. Of course, we can't forget little Debbie Bricca. Why kill a 4-year-old child? The act itself is beyond savagery, but was it necessary? Was it because little Debbie Bricca, who was known to talk like an adult, could easily tell police who the monster was that killed her parents? So many theories, so many questions. The case, of course, remains open, even though it's been 57 years since that horrible night in September of 1966. Investigators continue to move forward in the case, and recently pieces of evidence have been resubmitted for DNA testing. Evidence wasn't well preserved, but authorities do have a very weak DNA profile. As of now, no ancestral matches have been found. As for Fred Kleininger, he died at the age of 73 in 2004 of an apparent suicide. His wife took her own life just a few months later. What happened to the Briccas inside the walls of this home often sends a chill to those who have followed the case from day one. The horror and tragedy will never be forgotten. She was beautiful. He was a nice guy. And she was just a child. History has proved that over a period of time, a killer will often slip and share secrets of his crimes. But then sometimes, the secrets are just taken to the grave. If you have any information about the Bricca murders, please contact the Green Township Police Department at 513-574-0007. For a more in-depth look at the Bricca murders, I highly recommend the book Summer's Almost Gone by author J.T. Townsend. Thank you for tuning in today. If you like our videos and would like to help our channel grow, please consider sharing this video with a friend. Also, if you aren't already subscribed to EOJ, please consider doing so. It's completely free, and it's the best way to stay in the loop about our channel and get notified when videos will be uploaded. As always, stay well and be safe. Until we see you again with another cold case, this has been Eye on Justice.